Right. Let's call it quits because I've had enough. Thank you, darling. Have a good time.
Mr. President, let's please. I traveled all the way to Wisconsin.
I've sat in the rain with you.
I know.
I've sat in the rain with you for an hour,
Wisconsin.
on and off in the rain, and I've given you enough time. You ought to straighten out your press because you know what?
Mr.
A
President,
country can never be great with a dishonest
Listen,
press.
we
Come on, let's
traveled
go.
all the way to Wisconsin for this interview.
Good day, everyone, and welcome back to the Clever Report. It's yours truly, Peter Clever. So today we'll be reacting to President Trump's NBC interview crash out and walkout. So basically, Kristen Walker of the NBC News was interviewing President Trump. She started asking him certain probing questions, and then he became agitated, typical President Trump. And then he just basically removed the microphone from his chest and then walked out of the interview. So I want us to watch the clip. It's like a few minutes clip, and then I'll give you my take on the issue.
During this pre-taped interview on Meet the Press, President Trump, as many of us have seen, stormed off after Kristen Welker asked him for evidence to back up his false claims of election fraud in California. Let's watch.
Let's talk
Your
about
elections in this country, we're like a third world country. Your elections are crooked, and you're crooked, and Meet the Press is crooked, and so is ABC and CBS and CNN.
But Mr. President,
you're one-sided crooked networks. Right, let's call it quits because I've had enough. Thank you, darling. Have a good time.
Mr. President, let's please. I traveled all the way to Wisconsin.
I've sat in the rain with you.
I know.
I've sat in the rain
all the
with
way
you
to
for an hour,
Wisconsin.
on and off in the rain, and I've given you enough time. You ought to straighten out your press because you know what?
Mr.
A
President,
country can never be great with a
all,
dishonest
listen,
press.
we
Come on, let's
traveled
go.
all the way to Wisconsin for this interview.
So clearly a lot going on there. Brian, help us understand what led up to that moment.
It's one of the most heated endings to an interview with President Trump I've ever seen. Yes, there was an issue with the rain. It had been raining on the roof of this barn that they were sitting in, so Trump was distracted by the rain. It made the production of the interview a little bit harder. He said afterwards he was angry because of the rain, but he was clearly also angry at Welker's questions. And this gets to the difference between accessibility and accountability. President Trump is very accessible. He answers questions from the press all the time, but that's not always the same as accountability. When he's talking with his daughter-in-law on Fox News, or he's answering one or two questions on the phone to a reporter who calls him, there's not the same form of accountability that you see in a sit-down television interview. With Kristen Welker, she was asking specific questions that were trying to hold the president accountable. And he kept repeating conspiracy theories with no basis in reality. He talked about the January 6 rioters having their lives destroyed by the government. He talked about California elections being rigged, for which there is no evidence. And Welker kept asking a simple question: where's the evidence for those claims? Daniel Dale, our fact checker here at CNN, has said those claims are just straight up lies. There is no evidence for them. Trump did not like that accountability, right? He's happy to be accessible, but he doesn't want to be accountable. And so that's why he walked off. He even took off the microphone. You could hear him stepping on the microphone there. Notably, however, he did talk to Welker the next day, and he committed to another interview with NBC. So that really speaks to the president's desire to be on camera, to be the center of attention. But like I said, Pam and Wolf, he doesn't want to be held accountable, and that's why he went back to those usual insults and smears when he was asked for evidence of his conspiracy theories.
I want to shift gears to our colleague Kristen Welker at NBC Meet the Press, who held an interview with the president over the weekend. We should know it was pouring rain outside, which made it hard to get the interview off. But the president stormed out in the middle of the interview, no pun intended, with the storm going on, after he was making wild, unbased claims about the elections in California, January 6th, the 2020 election. And Kristen was pushing back, asking for evidence of which he had none, and he walked off. I want to play that.
Your elections in this country, we're like a third world country. Your elections are crooked, and you're crooked, and Meet the Press is crooked, and so is ABC and CBS and CNN.
But Mr. President,
you're one-sided crooked networks. Right, let's call it quits because I've had enough. Thank you, darling. Have a good time.
Now, I don't even know where to begin, but if you're in the shoes of President Trump, knowing what the media have done to you for over 10 years, the media has actually colluded and lied against President Trump, almost accusing him of espionage, something that is, punishable by death. So I kind of understand his hostility towards the media. I understand. And two things can be true at the same time in this context, because the war against Iran and the whole problem in the Middle East, none of his voters, even the Republic, he promised no new wars. Even the Republican caucus, everybody, nobody actually people that actually voted for President Trump in this election, especially the independents, nobody actually wants this war because the war was making everything expensive, even in Nigeria, the Strait of Hormuz, where 20% of the oil passes through, and then it was just blocked. So, the economic warfare that, Iran came with was affecting everybody. Nobody wanted this war because you can criticize President Trump for this war. I can criticize him very, very well. But that doesn't mean that the media is not complicit. That doesn't mean that, they've not been trying to, gaslight us and tell us that he's the bad person, calling him all sorts of names. So I understand his hostility. Everybody knows that this war doesn't benefit anybody in the US. It only benefits a tiny country in the Middle East that I will not call their names. Everybody knows the country I'm talking about. So I understand President Trump's hostility, but these are still another way of avoiding accountability and stuff, because like that guy said, he's accessible but not accountable, because President Trump loves the camera, he loves the spotlight, he loves talking to the press, even though he doesn't like the press, but he loves appearing. Everybody knows that he has that kind of narcissism in him, whereby he loves the attention on him, and that is true. So, but I understand where he's coming from with the whole January 6th and everything. I understand President Trump's, very, very skepticism about the media. I understand why he actually tries to bully the media anytime he gets opportunity, because for his first time, even from 2015 when he declared to run, the media was against him. The media apparatus lied against him. The Russia host, the January 6th, everything. The media was throwing everything at him. So if you're in his shoes, you understand. I kind of understand, but it's a slippery slope that the president will walk out of the interview without answering certain questions. The interview he, granted. But at least I'm happy that he called the NBC presenter, Kristen Walker, and asked for the interview to be done. I understand that, and it's very, very good from his own part, from President Trump's own part to, try to extend the olive branch back to the media. But I understand him. Especially the mainstream media. The mainstream media was just working for the Democrats. I understand President Trump perfectly. Even though I don't agree with most of the things he's doing in his second term, the whole, foreign influence in his government, the whole war in Iran, that is topic for another day. But you cannot come and say that the media is just somehow the victim in the whole President Trump's narrative. The media is not the darling here. The media is not the victim. They created this person. They made him the way he is. So I kind of understand where President Trump is coming from, but I just hope they can come to a compromise where he can talk to the media without, crashing out and storming out like this. That's just all I have to say about the video. The whole thing is funny. It's typical President Trump. The attention has to be on him. That is just the fact. He wants the attention to be on him at all times. That is typical President Trump. So give me your take in the comment section. Also, be respectful about it. I might be wrong. That's why I want your take in the comment section. Like, subscribe, turn on post notifications so you'll be notified anytime I drop another video. I love you, but God loves you more. Until next time, peace.